Welcome to The Thriving Marriage, the podcast for those who want to get their spouse back in love with them and truly thrive.
You'll learn why 95% of people don't save their marriage and the secret method no one else is talking about that will change everything for you. Are you ready? Let's turn tragedy to triumph.
Here are your hosts, international marriage experts, Marc Johnston and Heather Choate.
Today, you might have noticed I'm here with my amazing wife, Jennifer. We want all of you to be able to get a little bit of a glimpse into our own, Heather and our own personal marriages, and just get the things from our spouse's perspective as well. Today, what we're going to be talking about is we're going to actually talk about what Dr. John Gottman claims is the most important skill in maintaining a healthy relationship. What he talks about, he says that learning actually repair skills is just so crucial. It can prevent further damage. It can turn negative situations around. It can stop resentment from building up. It just does so much. Before Jen and I get into that, though, as always, we do want to share a client win of the week. So this week I was looking through our Facebook pages. I saw a really good one from Stephanie. So Stephanie, talking about here, she says her dear husband has brought up going back to our church leaders as well as working with Marc, myself. This took her aback because 2 weeks ago he said that he wanted divorce back on the table and did not want to work with church leaders or therapists or Marc. Hey there, Corey. Hey, Holly. She also said that evening, her and her husband and their son, they spoke over an hour, and they're laughing and having fun, sharing stories. So always, even little things like this, it's a great example how some little changes can make a big difference in terms of interactions. So, Jen, with that, we get into our topic. Basically, the topic being repair in marriage and why it's so important. So I want to ask you, why do you think is, being able to repair things in marriage, why is that so critical?
Well, it's an essential skill for any like relationship you have with anyone. Just to get along in the world, it's very important to know how to repair situations when they're broken. And we were just saying, that this is our favorite topic because it's something we've worked really, really hard at in our marriage, and we feel like this is one of our strengths as we've been married 14 plus years. We've noticed that this is the biggest thing that we could do to add to our relationship is to really work on this, we're going to talk about having these tools in our toolbox to fix any situations that come up before they become anything big. And also helps us, as parents as well. So, all what we're talking about today is applicable to so much of life.
I think what you mentioned there, it's a good point. For Jen and I, this is one of our strengths, and one of the things that we do really well is we tend to bounce back really easily. I mean, we've had some challenges.
Yeah.
We've had our share of challenges in our marriage, but I think one of the things that we do really well and what has made you and I so happy together is the fact that we don't let any of these things really bring us down for very long.
No. We're both similar personalities in a way, I think, where we don't like the air to feel heavy for very long. It makes us unhappy. And so we're just those people that want to remedy that real quick. And turn things around if we feel like we have the ability to influence a situation, which we are the type of people that feel empowered usually, and we feel like, okay, well, this might be someone else's problem, but I know that I have the ability to influence the environment they're in, and I can help out in some way. So I think we're both those type of people to begin with, and that's what kind of makes it our strength.
Yeah, well, it's not to say that other people like sitting around in pain.
But
I don't think that's anyone. But I think it's more than just us not liking conflict, because there's a lot of ways that you can not like conflict and then have it turn into something unhealthy.
Yeah. No, what I'm saying is, sometimes your strength is also your greatest weakness. And so for some people that, are able to sit in conflict a little bit, their strength might be, hey, I have these this, positive confidence in myself where I feel like I don't have to absorb anybody's negative, energy, I can protect myself from that. So as I'm not saying that, it's worse or better. I'm just saying we're the type of people that don't like that. And we can sometimes pick up on other people's energies, how they're feeling uncomfortable or whatnot. And we want to remedy that. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, I saw your comment, Ruth. Glad to have you here live. Good afternoon, Denise. So, yes, it's been really good for us. Now, I know that, maybe you and I, the way we might repair things and the way we put things back together might not look the same as maybe some of the ways that other people do this. So, I know in preparation for this, I personally was looking at a lot of things on Dr. Gottman, John Gottman. Mm-hmm. And you're familiar with mm-hmm. Dr. Gottman. For those of you out there, if you don't know him, you should go be looking him up. He has a lot of great material. But I know he teaches that repair might look different for different types of relationships or just for different people. So I'm just wondering, what do you think actually, if there's so many different ways to repair things, what actually makes an attempt at repair effective?
Okay. Both the parties are going to walk away feeling better. Mm-hmm. It's not just, and they both feel heard, and they both feel like my concerns matter that I brought up. So, as long as you have those elements in your, in what you're trying to do, I think that makes it effective.
So,
go ahead.
So then a really important piece there, and I think this is where a lot of conflict comes from, is when people are not feeling considered or mm-hmm. heard. Mm-hmm. They're not feeling respected. I mean, otherwise, I really do think that, at the heart of a lot of conflict is that. Now, the conflict might be about consideration in different areas, like consideration in their feelings for needing connection, or consideration in their feelings for needing some safety or respect or other things. But I do think a lot of the conflict is just around not feeling heard, not feeling respected, not feeling considered. And so you're saying a big piece of that in repair is that piece, and making sure the other person is considered.
Even if you can't solve your problem, and bounce back completely to where you were, at least you walk away feeling like, okay, well, at least they understand how I feel and I understand how they feel, and we have some respect for that. Mm-hmm. That we might differ. Like we'll come up with a solution eventually, and also that positive outlook. Like, okay, well, we might have not been able to fix it today, but I feel like we're heading in a positive direction. We know, kind of where to go from here. We've cleared the air a little bit. So just having a positive outlook is another, sign that the repair is happening. I think, and a viewpoint of, it's okay if it wasn't, good today. We have other days ahead of us. Just kind of like having a bigger frame of mind when you're going into it.
Well, I certainly think that what you're saying there has a really big impact, because I think when couples are not able to piece things back together, when they're not able to repair, there is that bit of that negative outlook on things that can get in the way. Mm-hmm. Ruth is saying here that she and her husband have both not felt understood and can't figure out how to get through that. And I can imagine that would really create a huge obstacle in any amount of attempts at repair.
Yeah.
Now, when I was looking through this, I was digging through some of the material. Like I said, I was looking through some stuff on Gottman because, he talks a lot about this. And when I was digging through this, he actually had a checklist that he had come up with, different things that you could try in repairing some pain or just any sort of damage that went on. And you'll see me, I'm looking off screen because I'm actually reading the notes here. It says, so some of the different areas that he talks about, it's talking about I feel, like sharing your feelings, having an apology, like saying you're sorry and admitting your responsibility, getting to yes or finding some agreement, or saying that I need to calm down, or basically talking about what you need, stopping some action, or basically ending the painful part of what's going on, or appreciating it, saying I appreciate, and extending understanding for the other's view. And just want to kind of go over a few of these things. Why... I talked to you about this. I like to pick these sort of things apart and understand mechanically why these things would be important. And we talked a little bit, just a moment ago, we were talking about how having or showing that understanding for the other person was important. But there's other pieces here in this checklist. One of the big ones that I'm pulling out from this is kind of that sharing of your own feelings.
Yeah, and we just discussed this earlier about how something we do to do this, to share our feelings, is one, it can be hard to do, not making assumptions and asking lots of questions. So if you say, if the other person seems flustered, just not automatically assuming it's something you did, just saying, oh, you look, like something's bothering you. What is it? Would you like to talk about it? Mm-hmm. Instead of just being like, oh, like they must be upset about, what I said yesterday. And then just kind of like making it bigger than it already is. Just kind of like stopping right there where you are. I think that's what he says, stop the action. Like, so, okay, let's address this, what's going on. And then the other part is we're talking about being direct about things that are important to you. So instead of beating around the bush, that's another one that people will do.
That's actually what I was wanting to focus on right here. Because I do think that a lot of times some of these things, some of these arguments, some of the misunderstandings, some of the pain comes about because the other person doesn't really understand how important something is to you.
Right.
An example. I know we were talking about examples.
I have a good example. So our garbage disposal is broken, and it needs to be fixed, and it's important to me that it gets fixed. But so one thing I could do is I could be like, oh man, I could drop hints, right? Because we do that sometimes. I could say, oh, this is really annoying that the water is kind of not going down the drain well, and I have to do the dishes with it kind of plugged up like that. Isn't that kind of annoying to you? And then if Marc doesn't fix it or respond to me, then I'm like, he doesn't understand me, he doesn't care. Whereas if I'm more direct and I say, hey, it's bothering me that the garbage disposal isn't getting fixed and it's been broken a while. Can we do something about that?
So this is really about repairing something that the other person might not have even been aware.
Yeah, and they might not know. You might not know that's important to me, but that it's been broken for a while.
I imagine. I hear from a lot of all of you out there, and I hear so many times about you being surprised that things were as bad as they were. And I can imagine many of you would have felt like, okay, this would have been really nice if my partner would just talk about how important certain things are to them. I mean, Jen, I can remember a period in our life, we really had to learn this lesson well. We were not, we didn't always do this well.
Right. I think it goes back to that making a lot of assumptions. Like, oh, like they did this, so I'm assuming it means this, without trying to further understand. And I think that's what, we've worked a lot on understanding and being really clear. But what I want to bring up, which is something I feel is important, is you need to be consistent and with the small things before you're able to do well with the big things. So if Marc can listen to me and be considerate when I'm talking about something that's not a hot button issue, right? Like, what movie are we going to watch? And where I feel valued, my opinion's valued, and I feel like I hear him, and then we come to some agreement together. And if we're not able to do those small things, the bigger things that actually, trigger something in me or or Marc become harder. And so I think working on just doing those small things well, like listening when it, feeling valued in just the small things. Like for instance, something we do is I try to pay attention to things he might say. We both like to go grocery shopping, and we have a problem sometimes when the other person goes grocery shopping because they might not get the things that we value. And so it's a very small thing, like I'm saying, but we might be like, hey, when you're out, can you be sure to get this thing for me? Because it really matters to me, having this item. And, because I don't tend to buy a lot of snack foods, so I come back and I don't have the things that he values or breakfast items, and I'll just have the dinner stuff. And so he'll say that to me without being angry, like, hey, I saw that you got a lot of great dinner stuff. Do you mind if I, have a second trip later on to get some of the things that I want to get? Or can you get these things next time?
Ruth is asking, I think, a really good question here. She's saying, I think the assumption thing is true for me, but sometimes I don't realize that I'm doing it. Yeah. Are there some flags to look for? I'm thinking, for me, I've gotten to the point where I know that Jen, for the most part, is looking out for me. And I kind of have this base belief that Jen wants what's best for me, that she loves me, she cares for me. And so when I find myself thinking otherwise, I have to start questioning myself. Now, I mean, I know that might be different for many of you, and you might not be able to, come from that kind of that baseline. So I would be really looking at it from a point of, am I assuming negative intentions for my partner? And if I am, what you need to do is you need to get into the habit of questioning that.
Right. Yeah. And not only that, but just being aware of your thoughts, on a personal level can help you determine if you're going to that place of assuming.
I'll tell you, one of the things that I will share with clients that I'm working with, and I will usually assign this exercise when I start working with a couple, because this is, I would say 99% of the time, something that's going on, is I start having them journal about their interactions with their spouse. And then I have them actually write out different interpretations of that interaction, like one that's maybe negative, one that's more neutral, one that's more positive, just to get them used to thinking about those interactions in different ways. And we'll follow up with something like that. But
yeah,
if answering Ruth's question, something like this, it takes practice. This isn't something that that I say, hey, look out for this, and then you'll automatically change. I do think it's going to take some time where you really practice looking at your spouse and interpreting their actions in the best possible light.
Here's something that I've noticed with assumptions is if I haven't had a lot of sleep, or if I'm hungry, or if I'm not in a good place because maybe something stressed me out earlier, I know to be more careful about making assumptions, because I know that my frame of mind is kind of skewed. So just being able to take care of yourself so you can be that person that can think outside the box a little bit is a positive thing. Because I think, and I can even say that to Marc, I can even be really clear about, hey, I'm having a rough day, you might not know this, but the baby got up a bunch. And so I'm tired, so I'm sorry if I seem a little gruff or grumpy. Just so that he has some a background with how he's interacting with me that day. He's able to be a little more understanding, Whereas if I didn't say that, because we can be this way as moms especially, and just suck it up, right? Till we can't take it anymore and we just explode. So we can be like, oh, I'm not going to tell anybody what's going on. I'm doing fine. Everything's fine. And then somehow it's not. And we just, something could be like the straw that breaks. So just making sure that you don't get to that point, I think is important for not making assumptions for me, or letting, just what was one of his things, making sure that you...
Dr. Gottman.
Yeah, sharing your feelings.
Yeah.
That was, yep.
So we've been talking about how we do this really well. And yeah, I mean, this is like our superpower here.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of you might be struggling with something like this. And so I wanted to kind of just examine the topic, like, what do you think would really get in the way of people repairing things? I mean, it's such a crucial skill, such a crucial thing to do. Like, when there's any sort of pain, to really quickly address that, go over it, make it, settle it down. So why would people steer away from that? Do you need it? I can give my thoughts.
The
no, that's fine. I can give my thoughts.
Okay.
No, and I have to. I'm trying to guide this along, so I have to. I don't want to ask myself questions, but no, I can certainly answer this.
Okay.
No. My thought on this is it comes down to that sense of understanding. Once again, like I can remember. I can't even remember the specific what I was angry about, but I know we've been upset at each other, right?
Yeah.
I can remember some moments where I was angry, and like I said, I can't remember what, but I could remember wanting to hold on to that, because if I went to you and I tried to fix things, I knew I would have to give up some of my perspective. I would have to basically say I was wrong in some way.
I think that's what perspective is. I don't know if wrong is the right word, but it's a little give and take, right? And so you're knowing that you have to give up a little bit, to gain a lot. And so I think that's what perspective does. So we have to both come into it thinking, okay, let's understand this, and there's probably some middle ground here, especially if it's like a heated, hot button issue.
We're chuckling here because, like I said, we're having some technical issues, and here, hold that for a second.
Yep, got to plug in the phone here. Yeah.
We're doing this on the phone, and it's warning us that we're running out of power.
There we go.
Yeah, so I think that's a big piece of this is, and why people might not circle around back to a painful moment and fix it. It's because it's hard.
Yeah, and you might have had a bad past reaction. And even though times are changing and you might have better tools in your toolbox now, just touching on those pain points can be hard to do because they remind you of how it wasn't handled properly.
Well, you don't want to start off a situation like that and say, I was doing wrong, especially when you feel the other person did something terrible or did something hurtful. And that's why I like that checklist that the Gottman Institute put out, is because even one of those parts of repairing is that the I feel, like the sharing how you feel, which is, I'm gonna be honest, even sometimes that is a very vulnerable moment.
Yeah. I think that's why, going back to what we said in the beginning, is if you're having trouble doing this, is you just do it in the small things first. Can I show understanding in moments that aren't as critical? Can I feel heard? Can I share my feelings with moments that aren't as critical also? And if you can do that, you can keep, you can build up some trust there, because that's what we have now. We have trust that it's going to be handled usually properly. At this point, we have enough tools in our toolbox to be able to handle that properly, or at least admit that, hey, maybe we didn't handle that properly. Let's try again. Sometimes you need to do that. You need to be like, okay, let's take two at this discussion.
And Ruth is commenting. I think the comment actually, Ruth, you keep having some great questions and comments here. Something that I think that really applies to what we're talking about right now is, she's saying, she wants to know if he really actually truly wants to hear about her inner life. And so she'll ask, hey, if you want to hear about this, please ask me. Okay. And I actually feel like that's beating around the bush once again.
Yeah. And also, people are going to sense, because you will tighten up, your voice will be slightly different. Even like your mannerisms will be different if you feel uncomfortable about sharing something. So sometimes another mental exercise is to talk to the person with the assumption that, hey, they're going to understand me. Even if you know that they won't, it'll just change the way that you talk to them.
I think one way to adjust what Ruth was saying, going back to that checklist, like sharing her feelings, just saying, it would be really important to me for you to hear out some of what I have to say. Could you please listen? Or, even an approach like that, you could even make it a slightly softer approach, but kind of sharing why it would be important and how important it would be to you. It would be a big thing. But right there, Ruth was illustrating something huge. We're asking, okay, what prevents people from getting to this point of repair? And part of it is that feeling like you're not going to be understood. But I think another piece is that sense that you're going to be rejected. Yeah. And I know there have been times when, say, you've been upset at me, and I know that I have to back off for a little bit until you've calmed down, because I know you might not accept my attempts right away.
Right. I might want to address some other things that are going on with me before I circle back to it. And so for some people's toolbox might be, okay, I need to go for a walk. And then I'll come back and talk about this. But you communicate that. You just don't maybe just run out the door, but say, hey, I need some space. I'll think about this. You deserve for me to give you a thoughtful answer. So let's talk about this a little bit later. But for some people, that might not be something that works for them. Like Gottman said, everybody's toolbox is going to look a little different. So just notice what your strengths are and the best way that you process things. I heard something great recently, and he was this guy, I think it was like a TED Talk or something like that. He was talking about how just gauging our own personal batteries before we get into a discussion that's important. Like, can I give my attention to this right now, or is there something I need to do to be in a better space? Depending on is this a level 9 problem, or is this a level 2, right? If it's going to be a really important discussion, make sure that I'm going to come at it willing to be vulnerable a little bit, and that can take some effort to get to that vulnerability that you need to be at. So, for sometimes, like when we're having a rough go and we're not conversing well, it might be simple things like, hey, let's eat dinner first. We'll feel better after we eat dinner. Sometimes simple things can help you kind of change your state a little bit, which is important to come in at the best state you can.
Absolutely. So one of the things, we've been saying this throughout, this is one of our strengths here. I want to explore why. Why is this, what makes it so easy for you and I to come together and fix things? I feel like, honestly, like I could come talk to you about just about anything. Any sort of problem, and it feels very easy to me. Yeah. I mean, not sometimes those conversations are a little tense, a little difficult, but there's confidence there, and this is one of our strengths.
Right, but you have to have everybody has an emotional piggy bank, right? Mm-hmm. And so you have to be feeding that piggy bank first to have that kind of trust or strength to have the difficult conversations. And isn't that what you kind of do in your work? Is you help people feel like, hey, this is a comfortable, safe area where we can have discussions to begin with. Mm-hmm. So just even having that basic foundation is really important. And so I know I can trust you with my feelings.
Yeah, no, I think this was what you were talking about a little bit earlier. You're talking about how even the small things are really important. Like, I know...
The small things are. Yeah.
Like... I have some, I have my own hobbies that I like to get involved with. You're not always...
We don't always have the same interests, but I will not pretend. I will invest myself a little bit in the things that matter to you, because I enjoy seeing you happy. I enjoy seeing you lit up. And that's how I'm coming at it.
Well, even sometimes, you even might say... I know this isn't
my thing, but
I know it's important to you. Just for all you guys, sometimes I'm a big nerd. I really like playing board games with the family and like having a big collection of board games. I think just the other day, I picked up one that you weren't that interested in, but you said, I know this is important to you. And so we sat down with our oldest daughter. And other times, those romantic comedy movies
Right, not your thing.
Aren't always my thing, but I will say, I'm really excited to watch this with you because I know you're going to enjoy it.
Right, and that's part of the thing is I love the people I love. I like seeing them enjoying themselves, and so I will sometimes get invested in a hobby or a subject that I normally wouldn't because that person I love likes it. And so I might even surprise them every now and then with maybe I initiate the conversation about the subject, or I will watch that show or that video game, or try something new that isn't really my thing, just for the fun of it. I'll be right back.
Chrissy, you're asking how long we've been married for 14 years. We had our 14th anniversary in July. We actually have a visitor. Yes. This is the wondrous thing about having a home office. So we have our youngest with us now. So I think, to just kind of sum up what makes this easy for us, then it's because we've taken a lot of time to really demonstrate to the other person that we're each important to the other person, that we really consider how each of us feel within the relationship. That's been a really strong emphasis for a long time now.
Yeah. So just being aware is a huge thing. So being aware that you need that solid foundation to have the trust to handle delicate conversations. Being aware of the state you're in. Am I in a good place to have this conversation? Being aware of maybe your husband or your style of conversing and what's easiest for you. Because maybe not having all the kids running around would be a good idea while you have certain conversations. Just maybe it's something you need to go out for dinner and actually have some element of fun to make the conversation slightly easier to have. So you relaxed yourself almost, like you've come in, where you can be calm and you can have a good.
Yeah, I certainly think taking care of yourself so you can have these conversations does make it easier. Now, for those of you who are struggling, I'm trying to kind of, distill what Jen and I do maybe to help all of you out. And to be honest, this is partly what I have done in many cases as I've created the program, because there are many things that we do very well together. And I've examined that a bit and put that all out into some of the workshops and videos. And, so just one of the things here, like we were saying, even in the small things, even on the little things, we really give each other a lot of consideration. I mean, if you're not there yet with your partner, where they're not feeling that from you, I think having that message be very clear and consistent is very important. I mean, this is, if any of you are in some of the programs that I've created, this is what we talk about with the home messages thing, where we talk about really communicating your intentions with your actions and whatnot.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing that I wanted to bring up that I feel is important is having flexibility. I think that's something that we do well. We're very flexible people, as you can tell, with the baby coming in and just the technical issues. It's just being like making the best of things, right? Coming at it with the perspective of, oh, well, what about this can be good?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to address just a couple of the comments here, and before we start closing up and talking about a couple other things, we always go over a marriage myth, and on this we'll get to that in a second. But Melody, you're saying, when you have kids, how can you trust your spouse with the kids? Jen and I have 5 kids, but let's pretend that this was a concern. Now, you trust me with the kids, mostly. If this was a concern, I can imagine the kind of damage that might do to the spouse who is not feeling trusted with the kids.
Right.
And then on top of that, this for Melody, maybe not having the trust, maybe not feeling like her concerns.
I think she has more to her comment, not
We'll
necessarily.
get to.
Okay.
Or for Melody, like not feeling like her concerns are validated. Oops. And that would be an important thing that would need to be repaired. And I would go back to actually that list that we were sharing earlier, that with Gottman, talking about your feelings, but also appreciating how Melody's husband must be feeling with all of this, and coming to some sort of agreement. If I had this concern with Jen, not that I would, Jen is amazing with our kids, but I'd say, I can see that you're feeling hurt from not feeling trusted, and
I would like to fix that.
I also feel anxious about this myself, and so I want to talk about maybe how we can build this trust up and how we can make sure that I feel safe with you being around the kids. And this sounds ridiculous to me, talking to Jen about.
Well, I would want to ask more questions if I was finding out how to fix the situation. Like, what about it do you want more trust in? Because there's different elements of trust. I just noticed that it's 4 o'clock, so
we'll wrap up here in a couple minutes.
Sorry.
No, we'll have to wrap up, but I really liked this topic. It is a really good topic. Jen is reminding me though that we do need to get on to the next portion, the marriage myth buster portion that we always go over. So in this section, this portion of the podcast, I was just kind of like going over common problems or common complaints that I hear. Many times very real examples of what's going on. In this case, the myth that there are just sometimes problems that you just can't fix. I think Jen is going to take a step out, and I'll finish up. Thanks, Jen, for all right. I'll just take this over myself. So the myth that sometimes there are problems that you just can't fix. And I would say that this is absolutely a myth. But, Jen and I, we've had some big damage done in our relationship in the past. And it didn't break us apart. Now, why this didn't break us apart is because we were, I think we're fortunate in that we took time, each time one of these events happened, we took time to really repair the damage. We took time to really consider each other's feelings and to hear each other out, to make sure that the other person felt like they were supported. But I will say that, at times this myth could be true if you decide that those problems really can't be fixed. If pain and worry are really lingering, if there's worry that that pain is going to keep on going, it can be really hard for someone to let go of those problems. For instance, if there was an issue of infidelity, some people would say that problem just can't be fixed. Well, the whole reason why that would be is if the offended person felt like there was a high risk of infidelity happening again, that they were going to experience that pain over again. Otherwise, there's not really a big reason to hold on to those painful things. And the thing is, bigger issues do require really big action to give assurance that people won't be hurt again, or that those problems could be remedied easily. So when Jen and I and we certainly have had big issues in our marriage. Early on in our marriage, we had a church leader tell us that we should just get divorced. That was 10 or 11 years ago, and I'm glad we didn't take that advice. We're really happy together. But the thing is, the reason why it worked out, the reason why we were able to let go of some of the pain from what brought that on in the first place, was because we both decided that those problems could be fixed, and we took, appropriate action. We didn't expect everything to get fixed right away, but I think that with the right mindset and with the right action, that any problem is fixable. And as Stephanie is putting it, some problems are harder to overcome. I will absolutely agree with that. But it can all be resolved. It does require making a choice to actually try and resolve that. And I think the problem that many people are facing is that their spouses who might be leaving are considering that, say, another option like divorce or separation is an easier option to fixing the marriage. So that is the myth there, that some problems you just can't fix. And I know even many of you, your spouses, might be saying all of this. And I think it just simply takes letting go of the pain, which is possible, and an assurance that pain can be minimized or eliminated, or that there is something being done to address that. Some structure given here. And if you have those things, then you can absolutely get through just about anything. So, if you enjoy this section here, I really encourage you to go look us up. We do have the podcast running on YouTube. We have it on iTunes. There we are. Just look us up, High Thrive Coaching, and we'd love to have you subscribe to our podcast. So next week, we're going to share with you how to build up a foundation that can support your spouse coming back to you. I talk about this a lot with my own clients, building up that foundation. So what do you actually need in a healthy foundation for your relationship? Maybe your spouse isn't going to come back right away, but what do you need in place to actually make that happen? So we'd love to have you all here next week. So thanks all for watching, and give a shout out to my wife. I know she's not here right now. It was a pleasure. For me, it was a pleasure having her on here. And let us know if you'd like to see her on here again. Or I know Heather was on here the other week with Ben, I believe. Let us know if you'd like to see more of that. And see you all later.
Thanks for listening to The Thriving Marriage, your A to Z blueprint for not just surviving marriage, but thriving. Until next time, my friends, thrive on.